On one of my recent videos, I had someone leave a comment asking me to do another follow-up video about whether it would be possible for a single person to retire with a small pension. I followed up for a little bit more detail and I found out that she has $550,000 invested. She anticipates getting $12,000 per year in pension income and $20,000 per year from a rental suite. Finally, the most important detail for anyone's retirement planning is how much you actually need to spend. And in her case, she says that she needs $45,000. Now, at first glance, this might seem like a bit of a no-brainer, because if we go backwards a little bit and we figure out what this actually means in terms of pre-tax income, in most provinces, you need about $55,000 to end up with about $45,000 after tax to be able to spend. So if we take her $12,000 pension plus $20,000 of rental income and maybe about $18,000 combined between CPP and OAS, I'm not sure, and I'm going to get to that in a second, but that's $40,000 right there. So then all that we need to do is take her $550,000 that's invested, maybe that's RSPs, TFSAs, non-registered, I'm not sure, but we need to take that money and turn it into $15,000 per year, right? Well, maybe not. And so let's take a look at all the information that we don't have and how that might affect her retirement possibilities. Okay, the first thing that we don't know is whether this information that I've been provided here is her current status. Is she 55 years old today? Or is this something you anticipate sometime in the future? Meaning, are we dealing with projections already? Are we going to do a projection on top of a projection? Or are we dealing with known information today? That makes a difference. The next thing is your CPP estimate. So CPP is a guaranteed pension that comes after years of working and contributing to the pension, and it is indexed with inflation. So that means it goes up every year as inflation goes up, and it protects your purchasing power. Because this is a pretty critical part of most people's retirement plans, having a good idea of how much you need or how much you're going to anticipate from CPP is going to make a huge difference. Next one, old age security qualification. I don't know if this person qualifies for old age security or not. So you need to have lived in Canada for a certain amount of time to be able to qualify for OAS in the first place. And so I'm not sure if this is a relevant factor to be planning there, but for someone that qualifies for the maximum, it's about $700 a month. And again, that's indexed to inflation as well. So that is a pretty significant amount of money for someone who only needs to spend about $45,000 a year. Speaking of inflation again, so the pension income is one thing, but whether that pension is actually indexed to inflation is another thing. Some pensions are, many pensions are not. And so $12,000 in today's dollars is not the same thing as $12,000 15, 20, 25 years from now. And so without knowing whether that pension is indexed or not, we can't give a really good, accurate projection into the future. The pension start date and the bridge benefit, if there is a bridge benefit, which is a payment that shows up if you're able to qualify for retirement on that pension pre-age 65. Oftentimes there's a benefit. It's a small payment that gets paid every month that gets you between now and age 65. It's bridging you until old age security and CPP kick in. It's not directly tied to those things, but that's kind of the idea. And I don't know if this pension has one or what disappears after age 65. If anything, lots of details that are missing on the pension side of things. Real estate is a big part of it too that we're missing information on. So she mentions having income from a suite, but I've no clue whether this is a suite in her own house or something entirely different. If she owns her own house or if she's renting herself. Sometimes people rent but own properties that they rent out for income purposes. I don't know, but having the details on that matter because it affects your net worth and how much you could potentially sell down in the future if you need to downsize or something like that. Another thing, do you always want to be a landlord? Are you going to be a 95-year-old person that is still managing a rental property? Even a 75-year-old person, I have tons of clients that have sold rental properties and they said that it was the best thing that they ever did in their life because they don't have to deal with it anymore. I don't know if this is the case here, but many times when people are in their older years, these properties are gone. We don't know what that property is worth, how long that income is going to be generated. All of that information is valuable for doing a proper projection. Even if you plan on keeping that rental property for a long period of time, what is your plan for increasing rents along with inflation? Is it even possible? Some cities, some communities, the rent rates are protected in some way or another. This is highly dependent on the exact city that you live in, let alone the province and things like that. And so is there a possibility of raising your rent over time, or is that $20,000 that you're getting, is that kind of baked in largely forever until further notice? Kind of secondarily to the real estate picture is debt. So is there any debt on the rental property or your primary residence or anything like that that would increase your cash flow need? Or would you be subject to potential increases in your debt load if, say, interest rates went up again, like we saw over the last couple of years? Who knows what could happen in the future, but that is a consideration that you want to keep in mind if you are retiring with debt. On the investing side of things, the $550,000, I don't know what plan type that's in. So $550,000 in an RSP is a whole lot different than, say, $550,000 hypothetically in a TFSA. Very few people have that kind of volume inside of a TFSA at this point, but in theory, it's possible, but those are very, very different things, because when you take money out of the RSP, you have to pay taxes on it. Whereas with the TFSA, any money that comes out of it doesn't show up on your tax return at all. So that is a meaningful thing that you need to understand when building a retirement plan, either for yourself or along with a professional, is your asset location. Now, sounds similar, but asset allocation is the next thing that you need to keep in mind, and that's how you're invested. So if your investments are simply just GICs or cash-like investments, then your expected rate of return would be quite low. If you compare that to, say, an all-stock portfolio or equities, you would have a higher expected return, but there'd be volatility in there. So the range of potential outcomes would be quite a bit higher than if you're just in cash. Somewhere in between is probably more likely, but without that information, it's hard to know and project accurately into the future how your investments will grow, keep up with inflation, or potentially leave an estate behind for your loved ones. That's probably the final thing that I would think about too. Many people have very specific gifts in mind that they want to leave behind for family members. And so if you do want to leave money behind for loved ones or for a charity or something like that, then you need to bake that into your retirement plan as well. Because if your plan says that you're going to spend the last dollar on the day you die, you have it so tightly constructed that there's no wiggle room for the ability to be generous in your will and through your estate, then that's going to be a problem. And you're going to need to have that much more upfront to be able to offset your spending needs, plus the ability to give a gift at the end of your life. So all of these things are information that we are missing to give a really good projection for someone going out into the future. This is the risk of doing your own retirement planning using just a simple calculator of like, well, I've got this income and these assets and I can retire. It's a lot more complicated than that, and the devil is in the details all the time. So back to my original little hypothetical there, I said even things like, well, if you got $550,000, all you need is to take 15 grand out a year to kind of offset that need. It's like we didn't even talk about inflation just on the spending need in general. So the fact that $45,000 today is going to need to increase every single year along the way. So the rate of return that you get is all relative to the amount of inflation and everything else, and how your spending needs will change over time. So this is just a whirlwind overview of some of the information that would be missing from a good retirement projection to be able to factor in all the necessary details for someone's financial life after they decide to quit working up until they pass. Everyone's circumstance is different, so there's probably 101 other things that we could have talked about in this video as well, but those are some of the big ones that I was thinking about. So my recommendation would be to dig into the details a little bit more with your own circumstance to get into this information, to actually have a really good handle on what is going to happen in the future, so that you know whether you're going to run out of money or whether you're going to pass away with a whole pile of cash that you don't know what to do with. I have a number of case studies that we could do in the future, but let me know what kind of situations you would like to see me build out a case study for, using all the details that we could possibly know about someone's financial life. I'm glad to do more of those types of projection videos in the future. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in another video.